What's going on, everybody? That'll fan of that glare there. Okay, sorry about that, fellas. Gonna be starting off the Black of the Berry. This is part 9.5, and this will be the Black of the Berry, pages 91 to 95, and I'll try to keep this up a little more constant, a little more steady, consistent. All right. um. Okay, which core says scornfully makes all the right for light Negroes to discriminate against dark ones. Not at all, Truman objected, and merely explains, not justifies the evil, or rather, it's the fact of interracial segregations. Mulattoes have always been accorded by more consideration by white people than their darker brethren. They were made to feel superior, even during slave days, made to feel proud, as Bud Fisher would say, that they were bastards. It was for the mulatto offspring of white masters and Negro slaves that the first schools of Negroes were organized. And say what you will, it's generally the Negro with a quantity of mixed blood in his veins who finds adaptation to a Nordic environment more easily than one of pure blood, which, of course, you will admit is, to an American Negro, convenient, if not virtuous. Does that justify their snobbishness and self-evaluated superiority? No, no, Cora, it doesn't, returned Truman. I'm not trying to excuse them. I'm merely trying to give what I believe to be an explanation of this thing. I have never been to Washington and only know what Paul and you have told me about conditions there. But they seem to be just about the same as conditions in Los Angeles, Omaha, Chicago, and other cities in which I have lived or visited. Excuse me. You see, people have to feel superior to something, and there is scant satisfaction in feeling superior to domestic animals or steel machines that one can train to utilize. It's much more pleasing to pick out some individual or group of individuals on the same plane to feel superior to. This is almost mistreated. My uh, this is almost necessary when one is a member of a supposedly despised, mistreated minority group. Then consider that the mulatto is much nearer white than he is black, and therefore more liable to act like a white man than a black one. Although I cannot say that I see a great deal of difference in any of their actions. They are human beings first, and only white or black incidentally. Ray pursed his lips and whistled. But you seem to forget, Tony Cruz insisted, that because a man is dark doesn't necessarily mean he is not of mixed blood. Now look at you, or at himself, or at Cora, Paul interrupted. There ain't no unmixed Negroes, but I haven't forgotten that, Truman said. But I hadn't forgotten that, Truman said, ignoring the note of finality in Paul's voice. I merely took it for granted that we were talking only about those Negroes who are light skinned. But all light skinned Negroes aren't color struck or color prejudiced, interjected Alpha, who up to this time, like Emma Lou, had remained silent. This was, he thought, a strategic moment for him to say something. He hoped Emma Lou would get the full significance of this statement. True enough, Truman began again. I also took it for granted that we were only talking about those who were. As I said before, Negroes are, after all, human beings, and they are subject to be influenced and controlled by the same forces and factors that influence and control other human beings. And an environment where they are so many color prejudiced whites, they are bound to be a number of color prejudiced blacks. Color prejudice and religion are akin in one respect. Some folks have it and some don't. And the kernel that is responsible for it is present in us all, which is to say that potentially we are all color prejudiced as long as we remain silent in this environment. For as you know, prejudices are always caused by differences, and the majority group sets the standard. Then, too, since black is the favorite color of vaudeville comedians and jokesters, and conversely, as intimately associated with tragedy, it is no wonder that even the blackest individual would seek out someone more black than himself to laugh at. So saith the Lord, Tony answered soberly. And the Holy Ghost saith, let's have another drink. Happy thought, Ray continued. Ray. Happy thought, Ray. Continue, return, Cora. Sorry. Give us some more. Ice cream and gin, Alva. Alva went into the alcove to prepare another concoction. Tony started the Victrola. Truman returned to Emma Lou, who all the while had been sitting there with Alva's arm around her, every muscle in her body feeling as if it wanted to twitch, not knowing whether to be sad or to be angry. She couldn't comprehend all this talk. She couldn't see how these people could sit down and so dispassionately discuss something that seemed particularly tragic to her. This fellow Truman, whom she was certain she knew, with all his highfalutin talk disgusted her immeasurably. She wasn't sure that they weren't all poking fun at her. Truman was speaking. Miss Morgan, don't you attend school at Southern California? Emma Lou at last realized where she had seen him before. So this was Truman Walter, the little cock-o, the walk, as they called him on the campus. She answered him with difficulty, for there was a sob in her throat. Yes, I did. Before Truman could say more, Ray called to him. Say, Bozo, what time are we going to the party? It's almost 1 o'clock now. Is it? Alva seemed surprised, but Aaron and Alta aren't here yet. They've been married just long enough to be late to everything. What do you say we go by and ring their bell? Excuse me. Tony suggested, ignoring Paul's Greenwich Village wit. Sal, all right, Sal, right with me. Truman lifted his glass to his lips, then on to the house rent party, on to the boughs of Beale Street. They drained their glasses and prepared to leave. Socket. Piano playing, slow, loud, and discordant, accompanied by the rhythmic sound of shuffling feet, down a long dark hallway to an inside room lit by a solitary red bulb. Oh, play it, you dirty no-gooder. A room full of dancing couples, scarcely moving their feet, arms completely encircling each other's bodies, cheeks being warmed by one another's breath, eyes closed, animal ecstasy agitating their perspiring faces. There was much panting, hip movement, and shaking of the buttocks. Do it twice in the same place. Get off that dime. Somebody was singing. I ask you very confidently. Sing it, man, sing it. Piano treble moaning, bass rumbling like thunder. A swarm of people motivating their bodies to express in suggestive movements the ultimate consummation of desire. The music stopped. The room was suffocatingly hot, and Emma Lou was disturbingly dizzy. She clung fast to Alpha and let the room and its occupants whirl around her. Bodies and faces glided by, leering faces and lewd bodies, anxious faces and angular bodies, sad faces and obese bodies, all mixed up together. She began to wonder how such a small room could hold so many people. Oh, play it again. She saw the pianist now, silhouetted against the dark mahogany piano, saw him bend his long, slick-haired head until it hung low on his chest, then lifted his hands high in the air and as quickly let them descend upon the keyboard. There was one moment of cacophony, then the long, supple fingers evolved a slow, tantalizing melody out of the deafening chaos. Everyone began to dance again, body called to body, and cemented themselves together, lewd limbs lewdly intertwined. The couple there, kissing, another couple dipping to the floor and slowly shimmying, belly to belly as they came back to an upright position. A slender dark girl with wild eyes and wilder hair stood in the center of the room, supported by the strong, lithe arms of a longshore man. She bent her trunk backward until her head hung below her waistline. All the while, she kept the lower portion of her body quivering like jello. She whips it to a jelly, the piano was singing now. and banging on the keys with such a might that an empty gin bottle on the top of the piano seemed to seize up with agu, or og. Oh, play it, Mr. Charlie. Emmalou grew limp in Al's arms. What's the matter, honey? Drunk? She couldn't answer. The music, augmented by the general atmosphere of the room, and the liquor she had drunk, had presumably created another person in her stead. She felt like flying into an emotional frenzy, felt like flinging her arms and legs in an insane unison. She had become very fluid, very elastic, and all the while she was giving more and more to the music, into the liquor, to the physical madness of the moment. When the music finally stopped, Alva led Emmalou to a settee by the window, which his crowd had appropriated. Everyone is exceedingly animated, but they all talked in hushed, almost reverential tones. Isn't this marvelous? Truman's eyes were ablaze with interest and excitement. Even Tony Cruz seemed unusually alert. It, it's the greatest I've ever seen, he exclaimed. Alva seemed almost unemotional, the unemotional one in the crowd. Paul, the most detached, looking at him, all watching Gray. Remember, Bo? Truman consoled him. Tonight, you're passing. Here's a new wrinkle. White man passes for Negro. Why not? Enough of you pass for white. They all laughed. Then transferred their interest back to the party. Cora was speaking. Did you see that little girl in pink, the one with the scar on her face, dancing with that tall, lanky, one-armed man? Wasn't she throwing it up to him? Yeah, Tony admitted. But she didn't do anything on that little Mexican-looking girl. She must have been born in Cairo. Say, but isn't that one looking darky over there, 2 chairs to the left? Is he gonna smother that woman? Truman asked excitedly. I say she kind of liked it. Paul answered, then lit another cigarette. Do you know they have corn liquor in the kitchen? They serve it from the coffee pot. Aaron seemed proud of his discovery. Yes, said Alva. They got Hoppin' John out there too. What the hell is Hoppin' John? Ray, I'm ashamed of you. Here are you, passive of color, and don't know what Hoppin' John is. Tell him, Cora. I don't know either. Another one of these foreigners. Cora looked at Truman disdainfully. Hoppin' John is black-eyed peas and rice. Didn't they have any out in Salt Lake City? Have they any cheddarlings? Alta asked eagerly. No, Alta, Alva replied dryly. This isn't Kansas. They have got pig's feet, though. Lead me to him, Aaron and Alta shouted in unison and led the way to the kitchen. Emmalou clung to Alva's arm and tried to remain behind. Alva, I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Come on, snap out of it. You need another drink. He pulled her up from the settee and led her through the crowded room, down the dark hallway, to the more crowded kitchen. When they returned to the room, the pianist was just preparing to play again. He was tall and slender, with extra long legs and arms, giving him the appearance of a scarecrow. His pants were tight in the waist and full in the legs. He wore no coat, and a blue silk shirt hung damply to his body. He acted it as if he were the king of the occasion, ruling all from his piano stool throne. He talked familiarity to everyone in the room, called women from other men's arms, demanded drinks from any bottle he happened to see being passed around, laughed uproariously, and made many grotesque and oftentimes obscene gestures. There were signs of a scuffle in an adjoining room. An excited voice exclaimed, "You goddamn son of a bitch! Don't you catch my dice no more." The piano player banged one of the keys and drowned out the reply, if there was one. Emmalou could not keep her eyes off the piano player. He was acting like a maniac, occasionally turning completely around on his stool, grimacing like a witch doctor, and letting his hands dawdle over the keyboard of the piano with an agonizing indolence. When compared to the extreme exertion to which he put the rest of his body, he was improvising. The melody of the piece he had started to play was merely a base for more bawdy variations. His left foot thumped on the floor in time with the music, while his right punished the piano's loud pedal. beads of perspiration gathered grease from his slicked down hair and rolled elegant, elegantly down his face and neck, spotting the already damp baby blue shirt and streaking his already greasy black face with more shiny lines. The sailor lad suddenly ceased his impassioned hip movement and strode out of the room, pulling his partner behind him, pushing people out of the way as he went. The spontaneous moans and slinky ejaculations of the piano player and of the more articulate dancers became more regular, more like a chanted obligato to the music. This lasted for more than a couple of hours, uninterrupted only by hectic intermissions. Then dancers grew less violent in their movements, and though the piano player to, seemed never to tire, though there were fewer couples on the floor, and those seemed less loath to move their legs. Eventually, the music stopped for a long interval, and there was a more concerted draft on the kitchen's corn liquor supply. Most of the private flasks and bottles were empty. There were more calls for food, too, and the crab game in the side room annexed more players and more kibitzers. All right, but the connect start the new video next. But yeah, I'll take a break. So, yeah. God bless, fellas.